Okay. All right, cool. So I'm here with my audiobook readers for To Dream in Daylight, and I've got Liz Christensen and I've got Todd Wente. It's Wente, right? Wente. Yes.
It is Wente. Thank
and we're
you.
just going to talk a little bit about this audiobook that's coming out. I'm really excited about it, and I wanted to kind of, I don't know, amplify it a little bit because as I listened to it, I got the privilege, I don't know, Liz might have too, but I got the privilege of listening to the whole thing and making sure it's all, you know, it's in sequence and it sounds good, because I have two different audio readers and it's all like the timeline needs to go. But it's almost like listening to a movie in the background of reading a book, because it's so visual and so stimulating with that two different reads. So first of all, I wanted to just ask, and I don't care who really answers that, just ask, how was your experience with doing this versus other things that you've done in audio?
Todd, you should go first.
Okay, I will. I've done a little bit of unscripted audio. I work with a podcast where we review fantasy and science fiction literature, and I also have a YouTube channel that I've been doing for a while that is marginally scripted, but not really constructed as a dramatic piece, more as informational. And so working with those kinds of experiences are very organic. They're kind of free flowing. We go in with a couple of thoughts or questions, and then it's just kind of like we're doing now. We just kind of have a conversation. Working with an audiobook, I had an opportunity to really study things in advance and to say to myself, this is how I want this to sound. There were certain characters that as I was reading them, I'm like, oh, I know exactly who this is. This is exactly how this is. Like the cabbie, I said to Liz, I know exactly who this cabbie is. And she said, this is who this is, right? I said, yeah, that's what we're looking for. So there were bits and pieces that there was a lot of extra time and a lot of opportunity to put some early thought in, and to really think through inflection and pacing, things that we do as part of conversation that we take for granted, that when you're doing it for a reading, sometimes taking the time to say, no, wait a minute, do I really want the emphasis to be there? Can I switch that? So it was just a lot of fun, because as I was doing it, it felt like I was doing it two times. I did it first for myself and then for Liz, and then for the corrections that she found later on that needed to be done.
That's right.
What about you, Liz?
I've never done anything strictly audio as a performer. I also am in a podcast, but that is like an educational, conversational medium. So it's not something that I've done like as an actress, which is, I think, what this is most closely like for me. I've done a lot of film that has a heavy audio emphasis, especially like in post-production if you're going through to do ADR or something like that afterwards. So I've done, in a studio with a microphone and trying to time something, and only having my voice as an actor tool to communicate with. Yeah. But I've never had only my voice as an actor tool to communicate with for more than one character. So that was unique. So for me, a lot of that pre-recording work was, okay, how do I make this woman sound different from the 10 other women, or that man sound different from the 10 other men that I'm trying to voice? But it was so fun to just to have like a chunk, right? Because when you're doing this in film or in like a radio play or something like that, if you have one character, it's just like your one-off line here and there in the conversation. And typically you don't have the other person to converse with. So you're just like doing your lines. But to have like pages, like a whole chapter, and feel like you could do the whole arc of everything, and the entire environment of the story belongs to your voice. Like that was really satisfying and challenging at the same time.
You guys did the same characters. Did you guys collaborate in that to make them sound the same? You both had to do Adri and Simon. Was there any synchronicity there?
I'll jump in on that one. So because I produced it and Todd was recording in my studio, The only chapter I did before listening to Todd do multiple chapters was the first dream where Simon is a child.
Oh, yeah.
And I specifically waited to hear him Simon a lot. Before I felt like I knew how Simon could come out of my female vocal cords and still kind of still be Simon. And then that ended up giving me a lot of the other characters too, like his sister. And I think he meets more of the people that I voiced than I meet people that he initially voices in terms of the linear progression of the story. So
yeah, when we got to the point where Simon starts to meet some of the people in Chicago that Liz was responsible for, I was like, okay, so this character, this was what I was thinking. And she's like, yeah, but kind of more like this. I'm like, okay. And while those things make sense to us, you know, when you're saying to somebody, no, that person needs to sound a little more like this, I'm thinking to myself, I've never made my vocal cords sound like that. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I hear it in my head, but I have no way of knowing how that's going to sound right here. So there was a little bit of that, but surprisingly, I think as we went through, and obviously Liz got the opportunity to have some of that choice making, but I think most of them came out pretty organically. We were kind of on it, and you did such a wonderful job of writing the characters. It was easy for us to have those points of reference, so that we're working from a very similar kinds of experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times where Todd and I'd be like, we both recognize this person as the same person, even if I'm gonna have that come out of me this way and he's gonna have that come out of him a different way. We still both were like, this is what this person's like. It's really clear.
Yep, it was fun.
That's cool. And it gives you, I mean, just voicing audio like this gives you a good depth of character. Like you have a bunch of different ethnicities or age groups maybe that you will never like act your, you know, just in regular acting jobs or anything like that. Did you have a like particular favorite character that you guys like to do?
Go ahead,
Todd. Nate was fun.
Nate was really good. You did a really good job. He was like my brother. I could hear it, you know. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, Nate was probably as I was going through and reading it, that is a character attribute that I pull out for that I've used at different for different kinds of character studies before. And so as I was reading that, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is totally who he's going to be. And as it came out, you know, it was much more surprising to me that, because as I read it, I was like, he's one of the few that didn't have any real indicators. And I just kind of said, okay, well, if this was where I was at in my life and who my friends were, this would probably be pretty close. The married D&D, originally we had to switch him. Originally when I was first reading, for some reason I put him as a Leo and I'm trying to remember now.
I can't remember their names.
I can't either.
I can look in this
the two guys
here.
who play D&D.
Yeah, I had them switched. I had one with a nice deep voice, and had Leo the husband with the higher voice, and then we read on a little bit further, and I'm like, oh no, that's never going to work because we save over here his nice deep bass rumble. Okay, switch. Yeah. And so, you know, as I've highlighted everything and had it in my head, and then I read that and I was like, oh, this doesn't work.
It's James. James is the married one.
James is the married one.
And Leo is the gamer, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but perhaps my most favorite one was the Chicago cabbie.
Willard, he was fun. You did a really great job. I knew exactly who he was.
Yeah, he was. In fact, I told Liz, I said, I am really looking forward to reading him, and I really did. He was for some reason. I've caught cabs in Chicago a couple of times, and for some reason, whenever I have that experience, I'm kind of expecting somebody like Willard to be there. and it worked out really well.
Yeah, awesome. A lot of the experiences in Chicago are based on things or experiences that I had while I was there. So I'm glad that you picked up on that. That is definitely a Chicago cabbie. That's what I thought. What about you, Liz?
So I really loved voicing Adri's narrative. I loved her dialogue, but I felt like I could put so much more of her personality and thought process and quirks into the way she thought about everything and what she perceived and processed. So I really felt like I was getting called out a lot with Adria. I was like, oh my gosh, Candace like knows me on this deep level. This is so who I am. But I had a great time finding the energy difference between Pauline and Julcie. Because they were almost completely opposite energies, and this thing would happen with my body with both of them that were so contrast. Like Julcie, I'd get all slouchy and slanted while I was talking like her, and Pauline, I do a lot with my hands, and I hit my microphone a couple times. So I had to like try to extend my gestures this way to keep her energy and then not hit my microphone.
It's funny. That so when you're doing voice acting, do you have to you use your whole body to do all of that? So is there any like, do you do tricks to your mouth or to make different sounds? Or like I've watched documentaries like of Futurama where they're like sticking things in their mouths to make it sound different. Did you have to do any of that?
No, it's all natural except for the beard. It's interesting. My mom, when I was 4 or 5, gave me the book Gerald McBoing Boing. If you've never read it, it's a Dr. Seuss book.
I know that book. Yeah, I know that book.
A little boy who never spoke, he just said boing boing instead. And it was about this kid that makes all of it. He does sound effects, and he gets, eventually he gets picked up as a sound effects person for movies. And my mom was like, she gave it to me when I was a kid, and she's like, this is you. And then she gave it to me again when I was like 35 for my 35th birthday. And she said, this is still you. And so, for me, I may not have even a face for radio, but obviously I have the vocal chops for it. So yeah, it's different voices and they just come out the way that they do. So there you go.
This is maybe a terrible example, but I'll just like confess anyway. There was a character, and I won't name him so that way hopefully he's not called out. But by the time I got to voicing him, I was like, I don't know what else to do.
I remember this.
So I did this thing with my mouth, hoping it would make an auditory difference, where I just like talked really wide and forward because I'm out of men voices. And it was one of those moments, like as I was recording, so it felt very on the spot for me. And I just did it, and then I kept doing it and hoped, like giant act of faith style, that it sounded distinctive in some way.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I just wanted to say thanks, guys, for doing that. I'm really, really, really excited for you guys to hear it together. It's really, really well done. When it's some things I wanted to just point out. So the whole, let's see, I don't know how did I even approach you, Liz, with doing this? I don't even remember.
I think it was it was a message. And I think you kind of felt out like, hey, have you ever thought about doing an audiobook? And I was like, I'm interested, whatever this, like, no, but don't take no as a no. Like, what do you want to talk about? Because my interest is immediately hooked. And you're saying, I think I want you to produce my audiobook. And you said, in some way, what I heard was, I like your voice, Liz. And I was like, I'll do anything for you now.
Well, I thought for sure that you would have the voice that I needed, the youth that I needed for Adri. But I also know that you like to stick your fingers in different pies. So if you don't know how to do it, you're going to learn how and do the best job that you could possibly do. So that was one thing that was really easy. but when we had the auditions, when Todd's audition came up, I knew immediately, like within like 5 seconds, that this is the guy. Because if you know audiobooks, there's a reader named Luke Daniels, who's my favorite reader, very favorite reader, because he does a lot of really quirky books that I like. So when I heard it, I was like, he has the same kind of quality as Luke Daniels. So I told Liz, I'm like, okay, well, this is who I want. And she's like, well, we should probably do callbacks. And I was like, but I'm done. I found the guy.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad I didn't blow it on the callback then.
No, so I had to do callbacks, but I'm glad I did, because I got through the callbacks. I got a chance to listen to the timing, like the rhythmic timing for the comic timing of things. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I'm really glad I did, because then I really got a good feel of what Todd could bring to this whole presentation, and I got really excited and I hadn't heard Liz's stuff at all. Because she apparently, like, I heard all of Todd's stuff, and I didn't hear any of Liz's stuff for like ever. And but then so it's going to be interesting how I was going to slice all this stuff together. But oh my gosh, it's just an incredible experience. So I mean, this book has a little bit it was difficult to think of how to do an audio, because I didn't want just one reader. I wanted two. So I'm really, really pleased that I've got such a great team to pull off this, incredible piece of audio genius. It's really going to be just a real great experience for people to listen to. So I just wanted to say thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
It was such a pleasure. It was so much fun.
Yep.
Perfect. All right.